everyone. Hope you are good and be happy always. Once again, welcome to Chishtis Academy, and today we are here to tell you a story of Bhakti and Sufi movement that happened in India during a span of 1200 years, that is covering the period between 5th century to 17th century. So let's start our topic. Okay, history. Regarding history, I would like to tell you one thing and only one thing, that read it as a story and enjoy it. There's nothing else about history, because history are the best form of stories that happened in past and you need to enjoy them. So enjoy it. Okay, so Bhakti and Sufi traditions, and the main thing that has been covered in this topic is changes in religious beliefs and devotional texts. So you would be studying religious beliefs and devotional texts, whatever scripts, whatever compositions, whatever devotional songs they used to sing in praise of their Lord, that you would be studying over here. That is, whatever happened in your Indian subcontinent, whatever movements in devotional and religious beliefs took place in India, in Indian subcontinent during this period would be studied. And for that, to memorize all these things, because if you get a question in exams that explain the various forms of Bhakti and Sufi traditions that happened in India during the period of 5th to 17th century, or explain the main components or the main ideas of Bhakti and Sufi traditions, then you have to memorize all the ideas and present them in one answer. For that, we have framed a code for you people, and that code is here based on all these forms of devotional movements. Okay, so Bavan is Chakbam. This is a code I have framed for you people so that you can memorize this topic very easily, and this topic will come at your tips. B-A-V-N, Bavan, I-S is Chakbam, C-H-K-B-M. Okay, so you can memorize this topic very easily for this topic. B for Brahmanical ideas. A for Alvars and Nayanars in Tamil Nadu. That movement took place through Alvars and Nayanars in Tamil Nadu. Then V for Virashaiva tradition in Karnataka. Okay. Then N for North India. Whatever changes took place in North India, that is Vedic culture and other traditions that were coming to India owing to invasions that happened in India. Then I for Islamic traditions. S for Sufism. CH for Chishtis. K for Kabirdas, then B for Baba Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and M for Mirabai. She was a princess poet saint. So we will be studying all these poet saints and main forms of bhakti movements that took place in India, right? So this is Bhavan is Chakbam is the main code for your chapter, and we will be covering all these topics in detail in this tutorial. Okay, why these movements took place, that is the first thing you need to understand in this chapter. Beliefs. I have given two hats over here. Beliefs. On the beliefs, awareness and visions. Changes in religious beliefs. Why did it happen in India? Because there was awareness among people. Previously, lower caste people and women were not even allowed to enter temples in some of the areas, or lower caste people were not even allowed to touch the wells. So the deities, the worship that has happened in India during the Vedic culture or Brahmanical ideas that happened in India did not allow lower caste people, scheduled caste people to enter temples or to read the text, the devotional texts or the compositions of Vedas, etc. So awareness was created amongst them that we are treated as untouchables, so we need to have our own gods, we need to have our own beliefs, so that we can also worship or do some type of devotional things. So then the big changes in belief also took place owing to frequent invasions of India of Turks, Afghans, so the Mughal Sultanate that was formed in Delhi. So all these changes that were coming into India through invasions of Afghans, Turks and Mughals also got intermingled into Indian tradition with Vedic culture and other traditions, and a new form of culture was formed, and that would be studying over here. And devotional text, that means the text or the scriptures or the compositions or the songs, verses or vachans or shabads that are sung in praise of the Lord, that people worship, or the deity they worship or the thought they worship. We would be studying Saguna and Nirguna type of worships also later in this topic. So all these things, whatever they sung, came under devotional text. That means text means whatever is written in a written form. Normally the historians rely on hagiographies. In this context, see, all these poets, saints, all the movements that were led by different people did not write these texts directly. They were written by their followers or the disciples. So we would be covering some of the very basic terms over here, or the historians rely upon poets, saints. Poets, saints mean the people who were poets and they were saints at the same time. That means the people who were devotional in their fervent, and they were worshipping some type of god, and they sung also. They were poets also. They composed poetry, but that was oral poetry. They did not write it in form of text. So they used to sing devotional songs in praise of their Lord, or they used to give verses or recite verses in praise of their Lord, or vachans or shabad as happened. Shabad is the form of the vachans or the verses that you form in Guru Granth Sahib by Guru Nanak Dev Ji and other preceptors or gurus. And then we have oral expressions. All these gurus normally give oral expressions because many times they were not that literate and they did not feel like writing anything into text. So they used to orally express their devotion for their Lord, and that was heard by their disciples or the followers. And their followers normally wrote these verses or put them in a textual form after their death, centuries after their deaths. And for centuries, these ideas got transmitted orally only through people by singing in temples and shrines and elsewhere, or in the form of wandering here and there through from one place to another and singing like wandering monks. Okay, then we have hagiographies. Normally, historians do not find any type of proof that these things were exactly written by some people, so they rely on hagiographies. Hagiographies are nothing but biographies of poets, saints, or other renowned people written by their followers or disciples, who normally modified the idea also. They changed the idea, and sometimes they did not include some of the mishaps or the bad things into that, and they always sung about the good things. So these hagiographies, though they are not accurate as per the data or as per the facts, but still they give a glimpse of the idea of the poets, saints, their lives, and whatever they did in their life. So we will be studying all these concepts over here. So get ready for our topic of Bhakti and Sufi tradition. The first point that we have in our code is Brahmanical ideas. So we will discuss that Brahmanical ideas. Brahmanical ideas has many features, and the first feature of that is integration of cults. That is, the different beliefs, they were getting integrated during the period of the span of Bhakti and Sufi movement. How? Major Puranic literature and all the books and Vedas were getting translated into very simple Sanskrit or very simple language. Why? Because peasants and women could understand them, so that there could occur a diffusion of cultures, and more people could come towards Vedic culture or Brahmanical ideas. So they were trying to just inspire people and impress people through their easy text. So all the difficult text was getting translated into easy text. Then we have two terms over here that are worth understanding are great traditions and little traditions. What are great traditions? Traditions followed by priests and kings of any kingdom or any society are known as great traditions, normally by historians. Okay, so great traditions is followed by people who are very big businessmen, very literate people, rich people, or the priests of the temples, or the organizations, or the different mutts that were formed out there, and the kings that was followed was known as great tradition. That means tradition followed by great people is great tradition. Normally we can just relate with that. And then we have Sanskrit Puranic literature was followed by great traditions. Okay, then we have little traditions. Little traditions means the traditions or the devotional practices or the customs or the practices followed by peasant society, or very low class people or women or the downtrodden people that was followed by people of peasants. That is known as your little tradition. That means the people who were downtrodden in society, those who were not very rich and did not have reached to very high class, were known as the traditions were known as little traditions. So clear? Great traditions by kings and priests, and little traditions by peasants and working class of the society. Then we have emergence of gods. During this period, at the time of Brahmanical ideas were diffusing in the society, there were emergence of large number of gods and goddesses. How? Because peasants were following their own practices and they were developing or they were having their own gods. And your Brahmanical ideas of great Sanskritic Puranic literature and the customs were having their own gods like Vishnu, Parvati, Shiv Bhagwan and other lords, and there was Murti Puja. A lot of Murti Puja was practiced at that time. So in that way, what happened, these gods and these gods, they also got integrated, and the biggest example of that is Lord Jagannath of Puri, Orissa, that you can witness in Rath Yatra of Jagannath Puri, that we can witness on our television sets also. So we have here Lord Jagannath is a form of god or the form of sculpture that was designed by a local artisan sculpturist, and that Murti was adopted or framed or given in the form of Lord Jagannath. Jagannath has been taken from two words of Sanskrit, that is Jagat plus Nath. That means Jagat means world and Nath means Lord. So the Murti or the deity at your Jagannath temple in Orissa, Puri, is the deity of Lord Jagannath, and it means Lord of worlds. Okay, so this was a classic example that was identified and that was manifested in 12th century, and this is the classical example of your integration of cults. That means lot of gods and goddesses were emerging in different societies. Peasants were having their own gods. They were just taking some stone or smearing that with some bhabut or some type of color, and they were worshipping that god, and they were making gods with the help of wooden sculptures, and this is how a wooden sculpture was transformed into a form of Vishnu in the form of Jagannath in Puri. So this is how integration of was taking place, and Brahmanical ideas were diffusing into normal society also, and peasants, Murtis and peasants, gods were entering into great temples like Lord Jagannath temple, and the local gods were given the form of goddess Lakshmi or goddess Parvati and given the form of Vishnu, as has happened in the case of Lord Jagannath. But there was a lot of conflict between Tantrics and Vedic culture. There was a conflict between Buddhism and Jainism. Between Tantric and Vedic culture, what was the conflict? See, Tantrics did not follow any types of customs of Vedic culture. Okay, they performed sacrifices, they did not believe in other types of customs and traditions as well of Vedic literature and the customs. So what happened? There was constant conflict in Vedic and Tantric cultures. Then there was opposition of Buddhism and Jainism. This was basically due to patronship or the grants that were received from, by these people, that is temples or the trust for the temples or the mutts, and the Buddhism and Jainism people. So there was a lot of competition for getting the grants that were received by the state. So there was conflict also, and there was integration also. Now the second point of our code is A, that is Alvars and Nayanars. Alvars and Nayanars were the people, were the devotees who led Bhakti movement in 6th century in the area of Tamil Nadu. Okay, so the Alvars were the worshippers of Vishnu, Lord Vishnu. They used to wander from one place to another. They used to sing hymns in praise of Lord Vishnu in Tamil and other regional languages. They identified, when they wander from one place to another, they used to identify some shrines or some spots where people worshipped. And later on, with the help of some king or some patronage, they used to build temples, large temples, and which later on became centers of large pilgrimage, and people thronged in thousands of numbers over these places. In these temples, there was one major feature of these temples is that those saints who led to the establishment or those who helped in the establishment of the temple are also worshipped, and songs and compositions were sung in the praise of those saints. Okay, so regarding Nayanars, they were the people, they were the community, or they were the followers or the devotees who worshipped Lord Sheva. They used to compose in favor or in the devotion of Lord Shiva, and they protested against caste society. What was the major feature? They did not belong to any caste, because they belonged to all the castes, or the different castes, that is Brahmins, artisans, cultivators, untouchables, and the downtrodden people of the society. Regarding compositions that happened during that period, the one major composition is that is Divya Prabandhan. that is considered as Tamil Veda, and it consists of 4,000 sacred compositions of 12 Alvar saints. So these were the poet saints, Alvars and Nayanars, who led the Bhakti movement in 6th century in Tamil Nadu. Regarding women devotees, Alvars had one major devotee, woman devotee, that was Andal, by the name of Andal, and she was a worshipper of Vishnu, and she considered herself as beloved of Vishnu. Okay. Then Karai Kamal Amayyar, she was a Nayanar, she belonged to Nayanar community, and she was the worshipper of Shiva. And she considered herself to be a form of demon, and she dressed and she behaved like a demon also, and she was a vehement, that means she was very praiseful of Lord Shiva. Then conflict. What was the conflict between these people? Conflict was for royal patronage of for Chola rulers or other rulers who were there, for the construction of temples, for the getting grants for different types of patronage and works. And Chola rulers helped many of these saints build large Shiva temples. One is at Chidambaram, Tanjore, and Parantaka I, the Chola ruler, he consecrated metal images of 3 saints, this is Appar, Sambarar and Sundarar in Shiva temple. Now the third point of our code is V. V stands for the Virashaiva tradition that was followed in Karnataka. It was led by Brahman Basavanna, who was a minister in court of Kalachuri, ruler of Karnataka. Okay, his followers were known as Virashaivas. Virashaivas, that means heroes of Shiva, devotees or followers of Shiva. And those were known as Lingayats. Lingayats is still a very popular, a very respected community in Karnataka, and they still wear ling, a small ling that stands for Shivling, on their left shoulders in a silver case. And Lingayats believe that by doing this they attain salvation. Lingayats still believe that. Okay, so renowned Lingayats were known as wandering monks, or the saints were known as. So it was started by Basavanna. So what were their beliefs and what were their practices? Lingayats attained salvation. They believed that by worshipping Lord Shiva, Lingayats attained salvation and did not take rebirth. They did not take any birth after adopting this Lingayats tradition. Okay, no cremation. They did not perform any type of daha sanskar that is followed in Hindu community, and they buried their bodies beneath earth ceremonically. That means they had a procession, ceremonical procession. After that, they buried their bodies when a person died in Lingayats community. Okay, they challenged caste system and rebirth. I have already explained they did not believe in rebirth because they were united with Lord Shiva when they worshipped Lord Shiva. Okay, so the challenge caste system also, because the followers of Lingayats or the followers of Basavanna, Virashaiva tradition, they believed that there is no caste and they did not believe in any caste system and rebirth. Favored post-puberty marriage. That means they considered that a boy and a girl should get married after attaining a certain age, after puberty has been attained, so that they can live a very good life and a healthy life. And widow remarriage, that means women who were widowed could be remarried in Lingayats community, and they favored widow remarriage. Compiled sayings in vachans. The sayings of Basavanna or the Virashaiva tradition has been compiled in the form of vachans. The sayings or the compositions are known as vachans. Fourth point in our code is your N, and that stands for North India. What was happening in North India? See, Brahmanical order was followed in North India because Rajputs were the rulers in North, and Rajput kingdoms favored Brahmanical order. Brahmins were in prominence and no one could challenge Brahmins as there was no competitor for them. There could not be any Nayanars, Alvars or the Lingayats could not be there, so there was no challenge to them and they were in prominence. Okay, but in the meantime, Naths, Jogis and Siddhas started gaining prominence. Why? Because trade developed between West Asia, India and Central Asia with India. So with that, with trade development, your organized crafts production means the production that is done for crafts in organized manner in bulk. So bulk of production was done in crafts, and these weavers, artisans, craftsmen, all gained prominence, and they started having their own faith and own customs and traditions, and that started to gain prominence, and that quite challenged your Brahmanical order, and people drifted away from this Brahmanical, started drifting away from Brahmanical order. And secondly, there was a conflict starting in the form of coming of Turks. When Turks came to India and there was establishment of Delhi Sultanate in 13th century, then meanwhile it started with the end of Rajput kingdoms, and when Rajputs were losing prominence on their kingdom, they were losing kingdoms, Brahmanical order was also losing kingdom when Delhi Sultanate came to existence in 13th century. The fifth point of our code is I, that is IS. IS stands for Islamic culture and your Sufism. So Islamic traditions that started in North India, that emerged in North India, and there was, we have just discussed in our fourth point that there was deterioration of your Brahmanical order after many of the Rajput kingdoms could not retain their power. So what happened in Islamic traditions is that Arab merchants, Central Asia people settled in northwestern part of India and Indian subcontinent, and they gave rise to Islamic world. Islamic world came into existence as a result of Arab merchants, Central Asia people, as well as with the conquest of 13th century conquest of Turks and Afghans, and later on the establishment of your Delhi Sultanate in that period. And later on in 16th century, Mughal Empire also came into power, and other regional states gave rise to Islamic world. So what was the main point of this is that when these invaders came to India, they established Delhi Sultanate, other conquerors came to India and they were settling in India, and by the Islamic culture was getting intermingled with the regional cultures of India, with the Brahmanical order also, and the Brahmanical order was subsequently and gradually giving place to your Islamic world also. So these two were coexisting in North India and other parts of India also, other regional states also. What were the main points of Islamic world? That is, the Islamic people or the kingdoms, those who were ruled by Islamic rulers, were ruled as per Sharia. Sharia is a law in Islam, and it consists of 3 points or 3 components, 3 pillars, that is hadith. That means traditions of Prophet Muhammad, whatever has been propounded by Prophet Muhammad is considered as hadith, and that is a very important component of Sharia, the law followed by Islam. And qiyas means reasoning by law. That means the subjects or the people who came under the kingdom of these rulers were ruled under law, as per the law, that is reasoning by law. The law should have some reasoning also, and that was having a solid base. Sharia had a solid base. Then Isma means consensus of community. That means a community should also favor the law or the rule of the rulers, and whatever was done by rulers should be favored by consensus also. That means majority of people should favor that law. Okay. Then category of Jimmi. Who were Jimmis? Jimmis were the subjects in, that means subjects in Islamic, under Islamic kingdoms. That means if in a Mughal Empire any Hindu is living there, that would be called as a Jimmi, because he is a protected subject of Islamic world. Muslims are not Jimmis. Hindus, Jews, Christians, whosoever lived in the kingdom of Islamic kingdoms were known as Jimmis. And Jimmi, the word comes from the Arabic word Jimma, that means protected one. Those who were protected by law under Islamic rule were known as Jimmis. Okay, this status was extended to non-Muslim subjects or people who were living in the kingdom of these emperors or kingdoms. Okay, jizya. What was jizya? Jizya was a tax which was paid by non-Muslim people who were living in kingdoms of Mughal Empire, Turkish Sultanate or Afghanis rulers. So the tax for right to be protected by Muslims was known as jizya, and non-Muslim subjects or the population had to pay this tax to be protected from Muslims. Okay, the popular practices of Islam. What are the popular practices that were practiced in Islam? Were, number one God. There's only one God as maintained by them, and that is known as Allah. He is Allah, the God of the whole world, and messenger of Prophet messenger of God is Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad is considered as a messenger of Allah. Then namaz or salat. Namaz or salat means prayers. Prayers to God or Allah should be performed 5 times a day, and they are known by the name of namaz or salat. They should be regular and 5 times of a day they should be performed. Then zakat means alms. Performing alms, that means giving alms to poor people and the needy people, is also under your practices of Islam, and this is one of the major practices of Islam. Then Ramzan. In the month of Ramzan, they need to observe fasting for whole 1 month till Eid and moon of Eid emerges. Then pilgrimage to Makkah. The last ritual that has to perform by every Muslim that has to perform is pilgrimage to Makkah, that is in Arab nations. And then what were the devotional poems? Devotional poems were sung in Punjabi, Multani, Hindi, Sindhi, Gujarati, etc., regional languages, etc. And Arab Muslims who established themselves or who settled themselves along the Malabar coast in south adopted Malayalam as their language. They did not speak any Arabic language. Then architecture also showed many signs of intermingling, or the culture that was from your Brahmanical order. The temple were built in the form and the order that was followed in Arab nations. Then there are some of the terms that were used by Indian subcontinent people for the people who invaded India or who came into India from outside nations, Arab world. That is, Turkish rulers were known as Turksha. Okay. Tajikistan rulers were known as Tajika. Migrants were known as Mlecha. Mlecha were the people in Sanskrit language who were not following any caste system. That is, people who were Arabs, Muslims and other Islamic people who did not follow any caste, and those who did not speak languages which were derived from Sanskrit. That means non-Sanskrit speaking people were known as Mlecha. They did not connote any type of degraded form, but still they were known as Mlechas. Then Turks and Afghans were known as Shakas, and Greek were known as Yavanas. In this section, we will discuss Sufism and Chishtis. See, Sufism and Chishtis are no different because Chishtis were the most important or the most famous of Sufis only. So I have taken this section as a whole and one. Okay, so Sufism was led by some of the religious minded people who were opposed to caliphatic system of political ruling, and they seek salvation by following Allah, Prophet Muhammad, and they interpreted Quran in their own manner. So the most important components of Sufism are khankas and silsilas. They were the centers where the Sufism was practiced, where disciples came and where all the activities related to Sufism took place. So khankas is a Persian word that means hospices. Hospice means a place where homeless people or the disciples used to live, and they were controlled by teachers who were named as or who were called as sheikhs, peers, murshids, etc. These all are the names of teachers in Persian. So successor, when the khankas died or they had the disciples who were appointed as successors, and they were known as khalifa. Okay, in this manner we have another component also, silsila. Silsila, that means a chain between master and a disciple that ran or that was connected directly to Prophet Muhammad and Allah, and through this chain these sheikhs or these masters and murshids expressed their devotion and gave blessings to the disciples who came under them, who came for the blessings. Okay, so the tomb shrine, that means dargah, or the court in Persian language is known as dargah, and that was made after the death of sheikh or the khalifa who died. Okay, so here the ziyarat was performed. What is ziyarat? Ziyarat is a type of pilgrimage or the homage or the visit paid to dargah or the tomb shrine of the sheikh or khalifa, and where people went to seek blessings at the time of marriage, at the time of death of sheikh, and to seek his blessings, and because he had a direct connect from God. Okay, then we have the lineage on whose name these Sufis, shrines and tombs were named. They were named after some famous sheikhs or the khalifas. So Qadri is the type of shrine or the lineage the names that we use for titles of the people who belong to the Sufism movement. The Sheikh Qadri is named after the Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, and in the same manner it was not always named after people, it was named after cities also. For example, Chishti. Chishti is a name that has taken place owing to a place, that means Chisht. Chisht is a central Afghanistan city that is located in central Afghanistan, and Chishti names come from that city only. Then Madaris, Malangs, Kalandars, Hadris, they were known as Be-Sharias. What is Be-Sharia? Basically, Be-Sharia means without Sharia. That means the people who oppose the law of Sharia, on the basis of which Islam is governed. So, the people, Madaris, Malangs and Kalandaris or the Hadris, they opposed Sharia and they were known as Be-Sharia. That means people who oppose the law of Sharia or the law of Quran or the Hadith, as we have discussed. Okay, and Ba-Sharia. Ba-Sharia, that means people with Sharia. That means people who were in favor of Sharia were known as Ba-Sharia. This is a very important term. You will come across in questions also, Be-Sharia and Ba-Sharia. That means Be-Sharia were the people who were opposed to law of Islam, that is Quran, and Ba-Sharia were the people who were in favor of the law of Sharia. Okay, the Sharia is the law we have discussed. Chishtis, as we have told, the lineage starts from the Chisht city of central Afghanistan, and Chishtis were most influential of Sufis. So in that Chishti tradition or Chishti lineage, we have Sheikh Nizamuddin Aulia, who survived during 14th century, and his tomb was made at the outskirts of the bank of river Yamuna in Delhi, and there langars is a feature. That means langar, we come across langars in gurdwaras as well. Langar means the open kitchen that is run on futuh. Futuh is a term that means annas, that means annas for charity. It was run on daily basis, day and night basis, and people from all walks of life came here and enjoyed the meal, and they sufficed their stomachs and fed themselves. And people like other eminent personalities like Amir Hassan Sizzi and Amir Khosrow. He is a poet of renown, and these people wrote verses and wrote about Sheikh Nizamuddin Aulia. They lived there and wrote about him. So they were the poets who wrote praises in praise of Nizamuddin Aulia. Then hospices at different places. See, in Sheikh Nizamuddin Aulia's, there were many disciples who were appointed deliberately to open hospices at different parts of the subcontinent to spread Sufism and Chishti tradition. Okay, so in this manner, Chishti tradition and Sufism, both of them became famous throughout the subcontinent of India, and they were gaining roots in Deccan and other parts of India as well. So Ziyarat was a form of, that means pilgrimage, or the form of homage that was paid to the tomb shrines of sheikhs and other Chishtis. So here it was a main feature, Ziyarat and Qawwali. See, Qawwali started with a call. Call, that means words in praise of Lord or Sheikh, right? Call are the words or the words in praise of Lord, and that started with the Qawwali started with. Okay, Ziyarat and Qawwalis were performed in tomb shrines, and they were the regular feature to praise the Sheikh and to praise Allah. Okay, then Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, he was known as Garib Nawaz. Garib Nawaz, because he was the comforter of poor. He comforted poor, he helped poor, so he was known as Garib. Garib means the people who were not rich or who were poor, and Nawaz means a helper, a comforter. So Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, he was a very famous Chishti, and he was known as Garib Nawaz. His dargah was visited by Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq and Akbar for 14 times, and Akbar for once gave or donated a cauldron also. Cauldron means a very big vessel in which food can be cooked. In Hindi we call it handiya, or we call it a pot. A very big pot, cauldron, was given to this shrine, Muinuddin Chishti shrine, to cook food for pilgrimage, people who paid pilgrimage, and for the disciples. Trade route, it fell on the trade route linking Gujarat and Delhi, and that's why the Dargah of Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti became very famous, because it fell on the trade route that ran from Delhi to Gujarat, right? Then Zikr and Sama. Zikr and Sama were the types of singing, or you can say the words or the verses that were sang in praise of Sheikh, Allah, and parts of their daily routine process. In the manner they evoke the powers of Allah or their sheikhs who have died or passed away. Then Baba Farid. Baba Farid was the most important of the Sufis or Chishtis who wrote verses in the local languages, and that were included in Guru Granth Sahib, that is a Granth of Sikh community. Then we have Malik Muhammad Jaisi. Malik Muhammad Jaisi is a famous poet from this lineage, and he wrote the famous of the poets, that is Padmavat. Padmavat, as you know, is a love story, is a poem that describes about the love story of Ratan Sen, who was the king of Chittorgarh of Rajasthan, and Rani Padmavati, his queen Padmavati. And it's a very famous poem of Malik Muhammad Jaisi, which has been made into a film also, and you might have seen that film Padmavat. Okay, directed by and produced by Sanjay Leela Bhansali. Okay, then Dakhini. Dakhini was a language which became famous in Bijapur, Karnataka, and which famous verses and famous songs and praises of sheikhs were or chishtis were written. And in this manner, Dakhini is a version of Persian or this language. So it became famous in Deccan, and in this manner, this Chishti movement became famous in your Deccan as well. Lurinama, Shadinama, they were all the forms of praises or all the forms of Dakhini language verses that were written in that. Lurinama, what is Lurinama? It's a lullaby. That means the song that is sung by mothers to make their babies sleep. Okay, Shadinama. Shadi, as you can see, Shadi means marriage. Luri means Lori. Lori means lullaby. That means a song sung for children. And Shadi means marriage. And marriage songs which were sung were known as Shadinama. They were the different names given to the songs. The Lingayats, they were basically inspired by the Lingayats and Abhangs of Pandharpur, Maharashtra, because they were thought to be inspired by these people, Lingayats and Abhangs of Pandharpur, and they had inspiration from these Lingayats and Pandharpur, and that's why they became famous in all the parts of Deccan and became famous in different parts of subcontinent. Now we need to discuss Sufis and state. That means relationship of Sufis with the state or the kings or the sultans who ruled over the kingdom. See, Sufis were not the people who would go directly to sultans and ask for some help. They maintained austerity or distance or dignity. So what sultans did, they established AUKUS. AUKUS means charitable trust. Here it is written AUQUS. AUKUS means charitable trust, which is meant for the help of tomb shrines or for maintaining silsila and the khankas and silsilas of Sufis and Chishtis. So sultans had charitable trust. Hospices were built by sultans. Grants were given to Sufis and Chishtis in cash and kind to khankas to maintain the khankas and to maintain the disciples, to feed the people who were poor, who were helpless and destitute, because these people were supported by the khankas or the Sufis, so they were also supported by sultans. Awliyas had direct connect with God, and sultans felt that they also need some blessings from awliyas so that they can win their wars and rule their kingdom nicely. So they continuously went, as we have seen, Akbar and Muhammad bin Tughlaq went to Muinuddin Chishti several times. In the same manner, other sultans of small regional states and kings went to awliyas to seek their blessings, because they thought that they had direct connect with God and they need to seek their blessings. Sultans wanted their tomb shrines or their, even after death, they wanted their death bed or the tombs to be built under or near the shrines of hospices, of khankas, etc., so that even after that they can remain under the blessings of God and Sufis. but there was a lot of conflict between them also, because both of them wanted to control the people who were living in the kingdom, and they wanted to impress people. They want to expand. So sultans wanted to expand their power, show their power, exhibit their power, and Sufis also wanted to exhibit their power. So they had their different names called by the disciples. Sufis were normally called by different names. For example, Sheikh Nizamuddin Aulia was called by his disciples as Sultan ul Mashayikh. That means Sultan ul Mashayikh means a sultan amongst Sufis. So this was a cause of conflict, because both of them just conflicted for power or fought for power. Now we will discuss Bhakti movement led by Kabirdas Ji, Baba Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Mirabai. Okay, so we will start with Kabirdas Ji. Kabirdas Ji led the Bhakti movement in 14th to 15th century, and Kabirdas compositions and his whatever work has been there is preserved by 3 different realms, and they are Kabir Bijak, preserved by Kabir Panth in Varanasi, that is in UP, and then Kabir Granthawali is there, that is preserved by Dadu Panth, that is a clan or a sect formed by Kabir, that is in Rajasthan. Then there is Adi Granth Sahib, in which Kabir's compositions have been preserved. Kabir normally believed in Nirguna Bhakti, and his Bhakti is categorized as Nirguna, because he did not believe in Murti Puja, he did not believe in different scriptures that has been in Hindu and Muslim literature, he did not believe in any of the customs which are followed by Hindus and Muslims. And that's a combined form of Bhakti that is the best integration example of Hindu and Muslim Bhakti movements, that is of Kabirdas, because there is no evidence that he was a Muslim or a Hindu. Some believe that he was a Hindu and some believe he was a Muslim. Though some believe, as per the hagiographies of that has been preserved by Vaishnava tradition, they believe that he was born in a Hindu family but raised by the family of Julahas, who were newly converts to Muslim. So Kabir in fact is a word in Arabic that means great. So there is no evidence that he was a Hindu or Muslim. So it's a best integration example. And then the Nirguna Bhakti is followed, has been put into different type of compositions that are recited in different languages and different areas, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Bengal, everywhere. Kabir's dohas are very famous everywhere. In every language they has been translated. Even he gave a different type of composition that is known as Ulat Bansi. That means opposite, that is upside down sayings. Upside down sayings means that the ocean is raging with fire. So how can there be a fire in ocean? That type of sayings were known as Ulat Bansi. That means upside down sayings. He made them famous. Then he used the mixed language. That was a language that was used by Muslims, the Arabic language. He used Vedic language also, and different types of words that he used came from different languages. For example, he used Allah, Khuda, Hazrat, Peer, Pagambar in his compositions, and whatever he said in dohas. And thereafter he used Vedic culture also and Vedic language also, like Alak, that means unseen. The Nirakar, that means there is no form of something. Nirakar in Vedic language means, Sanskrit means, that is having no akar, that is form, a shape. Then Brahma, one who is all known, the god of all. Atma, that is soul. So these type of languages were used, and there is a still controversy. He was born a Hindu or a Muslim. So there has been hagiographies, there has been compositions from which his life has been traced, but there is no particular evidence, and still there is a mystery and there is a mysticism around his life and his survival and his birth and lineage. Now we will discuss the Bhakti movement or the Nirguna Bhakti movement that was led by Baba Guru Nanak Dev Ji in North India. He was born in a Hindu merchant family in village Nankana Sahib near river Ravi, and he was a trained accountant in Persian, though he did not practice Persian or accountancy for long, and he started singing hymns in praise of God, and those teachings were given by him to his followers. He sang different ragas and different hymns, and his attendant Mardana used to assist him in that, and he was a Bhakt of Nirguna Bhakti. He was follower of Nirguna Bhakti. He did not believe in any type of Murti Puja, any type of idol worship, and he opposed external religious practices, whatever religious practices were prevalent in either Hindu religion or Muslim religion. He opposed them all. He opposed Brahmanical society. He opposed your Caliphate system. He opposed your whatever things were performed in those traditions. So he opposed sacrifices, ritual baths, whatever sacrifices of animals or people, ritual baths that were taken by people in different ponds or rivers for purification on different occasions. Then image worship was also opposed by him. Austerities or the purification ceremonies of different types were opposed by him. He opposed the scriptures of both Hindus and Muslims because he believed that there is no foundation of such beliefs in reality, and there is only one God, that is Rab. That is absolute, does not have any form, it does not have any gender, so all should worship him. So that was Nirguna form of bhakti that he propounded, and hymns that he sang in praise of God were known as Shabad. They are still sung in different gurudwaras and different sangats. He led to the foundation of congregational singing or congregational bhakti or chanting of those Shabads or recitation of Sabads, and that is known as Sangat. And he used to sing those hymns in different ragas. Then Angad, successor, he appointed Angad as his successor to become Guru, and after Guru Nanak Sahib Ji, Angad was appointed as Guru of that Bhakti movement. Then in 5th century, Guru Arjan Dev Ji compiled the hymns of all the former 4 Gurus, and thereafter 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, compiled the teachings of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, the 9th Guru, and that is known as Guru Granth Sahib, that is a sacred Granth, or that we see in different Gurudwaras, that is Guru Granth Sahib, and it consists of all the hymns of 10 Gurus that have been of Sikh religion. And Guru Gobind Sahib was, Guru Gobind Singh Ji was the one who led to the foundation of Khalsa Panth that we see as Sikh Panth nowadays that we witness in our society. And Khalsa Panth was known as Army of the Pure, who protected the needy, the poor and the destitute, and the people who were under the atrocities, under the burden of atrocities or different rulers who used to commit atrocities on them or barbaric acts on them. Sikh Panth or the Khalsa people have to have 5 things that were known as very compulsory. These were known as 5 symbols, and in Hindi they were known as Kekar, that means Kakar. Ka means the alphabet of Hindi, that is starts with Ka, Ka, Kha, Ga. That means Ka, starting with Ka, that is Kesh, that means hair. Kesh is hair. Kripan, that is dagger, the one you can kill with dagger. Kripan was compulsory with them. Kacha, that is underwear was shorts, you can say underwear, it's shorts of this length. Then Kangha, that means comb, was compulsory for Sikhs to keep because they had very long hair. They were having kesh, so they need to have Kangha also. And a Kada is a steel bangle. You can see steel bangles in wrist of different Sikh people that you come across in your life. So Kesh, Kripan, Kacha, Kangha and Kada, that is your hair, dagger, shorts, comb and Kada are compulsory symbols for these people who were in this army. So next we discuss Mirabai. She was the devotee princess who also was in your Bhakti movement, a major participant in Bhakti movement, led Bhakti movement in Rajasthan basically. And she was the best, she still is the best known poet in India, a woman poet in India, and is remembered for her Bhakti for Krishna, Lord Krishna. She considered Lord Krishna as her beloved. She was married against her wishes to the prince, Shishadya prince of Mewar, and she belonged to Mewar actually. Mewar and Marwar are the 2 areas of the 2 regions of Rajasthan. She was married against her wishes, but she did not submit it to the wishes of her in-laws. Even her in-laws tried to poison her, but she escaped the palace and went to jungles and forest, and used to sing bhajans in praise of Lord Krishna, whom she considered as her beloved, and she loved Lord Krishna like her lover. Okay, her preceptor is considered as Raidas according to some compositions, and bhajans that she sang has been transmitted orally from generations to generation for centuries, and now they have been compiled in different books, text forms, and they are still sung in the areas of Gujarat and Rajasthan, basically among the people who are downtrodden and who are of lower caste people. So that was all about your different traditions or different bhakti movement and devotional beliefs, religious beliefs and devotional text that has taken place. And there is one term I forgot to discuss with you, that is Saguna and Nirguna Bhakti. Saguna Bhakti, that means Murti Puja, deity worship. Saguna means with all the components and goals of your Brahmanical order, that is Murti Puja, customs and traditions followed by them. But Nirguna Bhakti means that you do not believe in any type of Murti Puja, idol worship, any type of scriptures, but you try to interpret God in your own form or in your own thinking, in your own way, and that is Nirguna Bhakti. Like the Bhakti of your Guru Nanak Dev Ji is Nirguna Bhakti. Bhakti of Kabir, who did not believe in any type of God and just praised and sang songs and dohas in his praise and devotion, is known as Nirguna Bhakti. Many times memorizing dates really becomes difficult and cumbersome, and it's all the more difficult to recall the dates we have memorized. So I have been using a method since my 11th and 12th standard in my master's classes as well to memorize very lengthy and very long tables of public finance and economics or in history, etc. when I was in 10th standard. So for that I am sharing this method with you people. If you can just avail any benefit from this, that I would be more than happy to share it with you. So this is the Bhakti Sufi movement that we have been discussing in our history chapter, and Sufi movement, we have taken a table of Sufi movement, and 3 Chishtis and 3 Sheikhs we have taken, Aulias we have taken, Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, and for that we have framed a code KF and Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, Fariduddin Ganj Shikhar and Nizamuddin Aulia Ji, and for them we have framed small codes also. KFN is the main code and small codes are KMC, FGS and NA. Now, okay, so KMC stands for Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, FGS for Fariduddin Ganj Shikhar and Nizamuddin Aulia NA. So for them the dates of existence for between them which they existed or supposed to exist were 1143, 1234 for Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, 1176, 1268 and 1235 and 1325. The dates have been written opposite or adjacent to them, and it's very easy. So in first section you can memorize all the names with the codes, and second section you need to memorize them in sequence. In fact, KFN, that's why I have written the serial number, I have written the code KFN, that is Khwaja, Farid and Nizamuddin, they have to come first, and in that sequence we have the dates 11, 11, 12. First you can write these dates 11, 11, 12, and then 12, 12, 13 is the code over here. The first dates have been written. So this is 1235 and this is 1234. We can relate with that. Here on the upper hand corner, right corner, extreme right, we can write 1234, and here we have 1235. So we can memorize them 1234, 1235, right? And opposite to that, that we have 1325. So 35 minus 10 is 25. We get 12 and 30 we have written before and only, and 34 2s are 68. That 2 is completed, our date is completed, and 25 was already completed, and left are these two dates 43 and 76. 3 2s are 6, right? And 6 minus 1 you can relate either way. It is your own method also. You can have some of your own methods also inculcated in this method. 43 and 76. 43 and 76 there is only 4 and 7. Nearly 2 is there. 2 size 43, 2 is 7. 76 is not there, but still 3 2 is 6 is there, and this is 1 lesser than twice the 4. Okay, the 4 2 is 8 is there, but 1 less than 8 is 7. So in this manner you can write the whole table that I am telling you. 11, 11, 12, this is written, then 12, 12, 13 is written, right? And here we have 35, and we know that across that table we have 34 over here, and 34 twos was 68, and here 35 minus 10 was 25, right? It's quite easy over here, and here 43 was written, and 3 to the 6 was written, and 1 less than twice of 4 was written. So our table gets completed. So it's quite an easier way to memorize these tables, and in this manner you can correlate with the dates and then correlate with the names, and you can write the table efficiently. And in this manner you can write all the lengthy tables which you come across in your history, in economics and other subjects as well. So it's all about having some tricks and fun with dates and names and framing codes. This is the easiest way to memorize all these things. So I hope the whole concept has been understood by you, and if you have anything to ask, send in comments. I would be more than happy to answer them. Be with Sachi's Academy. Keep sharing our videos, keep liking and subscribing to it, and keep loving us and showering love us as in support to our channel. Thank you so much.